Welcome to Jim's Informal Open Mic. I'm delighted you were able to join. We're going to do the normal process of round robin reading. We'll probably get through 2, maybe 3 poems each. And at the point where we're done reading poems and want to just visit like we were doing a minute ago, I'll turn off the recording and we can visit as much as we want until 5:30, at which point dinner is served.
What are we having?
We don't know yet because Mrs. Lewis hasn't shared that, but it will be good.
That's good.
So, numbers. Shaun, you are number 1. Rosemary, number 2. Mary, 3. Sterling, 4. Ken, 5. And me, 6. So I don't have to remember which face goes with which number. I'll just say number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is up, and then I'll remember my own name. So it looks like we are ready for Shaun to share a poem with us, if you would like.
Okay. I'm not really prepared, but wait.
We can come back to you.
No, I can. I can. I'm gonna read. Well, I don't know if you guys know, but I write with Molly Fisk every other month. And it's a written and visual prompt thing. So I'm gonna read a couple things that I've written in that previous month. Okay, so this one is called Immortal One. And I should probably preface it with the prompt, which was quite humorous. It was a photo of a peacock looking at himself in a public restroom mirror. He was up on the counter looking in the mirror of this bathroom, male bathroom too. So, I mean, he knew which one to go to. So, but that's not what I wrote about, of course. But that was the picture, if you want a picture. Okay, Immortal One. The peacock at the Buddhist temple is anything but humble. He struts and screams of his magnificence to anyone who will listen. Flapping prayer flags cannot compete with his glorious colors, emerald, cerulean, and glints of bronze, opulent in the sun, that follow him like a manservant, casting him in his best light. He weaves his way among the bamboo clumps, the eucalyptus groves, the pale, upturned faces of the Japanese iris, while a holy breeze nudges the brooms of the red-robed monks quietly sweeping the temple steps. Thanks.
Thank you. Number 2.
Well, I have a long one, which probably will account for all of my lot. It's called Sharp Joy, Soft-Edged Memories. And it's from my latest book, Life Stuff. 1. Making approximate noises to the Baroque trumpet concerto, with a voice that once had the clarity of bells. I know every note, of course. Unexpected winter sun streaming into the kitchen, the trumpet at full blast. Filet steaks, broccoli cream, a bit of onion perhaps, 1 potato. I move my head to the irresistible rhythm and conduct, knife in hand, ready to dissect the garlic. Someone shouts from a window across the yard to another person I cannot see. No te olvides la mascarilla. Don't forget the mask. It is COVID time in Lima, Peru. Plates, bowls, taste. The top of the waves of the Pacific sparkle. 2. I only once owned a coveted open top, but it's summer in Madrid and all car windows are open. The tape machine works again and Kalash wonders whether he is the one. La Traviata, one of my favorite operas. Kala's voice is beginning to wobble. Navathara pines from somewhere below, reaching into the heavens. I am immortal as long as no car comes towards us on the hairpin curves. We are going up, up, up. There is this restaurant I know in Sepúlveda's Plaza Mayor. After lunch, we'll mosey down to the Duraton to visit the Gallinazos, the vultures. 3. I took the kids to school. It's a gentle, sunny London morning. Washing ready to be hung, I carry the basket onto the lawn. Nothing smells quite as wholesome as wind and sun-dried linen. From the open window, Mungo Jerry. I move my hips, my arms hang the washing to the beat. Just may pull out the deck chair and get some tan in between the rapidly passing white puffy clouds that, for uncomfortable moments, make you shiver. In the summertime. 4. An inspired sun has dried the wet leaves and the muddy path in the park. My bedroom window wide open. A summer breeze moves the curtains. Vivaldi, winter, it'll have to do, making the beds. It's Sunday morning in Den Haag. There is a scent in the air of sea and some sweet flowers. A quick uitsmijter, nothing elaborate. Rob will arrive soon. He said 20 minutes. Sailing on Aalsmeer all day. Rucksack. Gin, beer, sandwiches, and in that order. 5. Excuse me. Circumnavigating the Starnberger See in my Fiat Cinquecento. The car has 2 luxuries, an open roof all the way back, and a radio which is blaring Schlager, German pop songs. Sag mir, wo die Blumen sind. Where have all the flowers gone? For the moment, we can see them on the summer meadows, carpets of them. Feeling angst, we sing our hearts out. My friend just left her husband, who tried to keep her locked in and threw the key away, while I wonder whether Max will call. 6. Lucky and I, at Sint Annanstrand, the Schelde beach near Antwerp. Smoke gets in your eyes from the loudspeakers. The sun is gentle. Lucky is getting fat. I'm 21, going on to 30. It's a miracle that Madame let her out. Madame has a pension in the old part of town near the Bourse, and a bar. I'm in the cheaper room at the back. We've become friends, Lucky and I. She used to do the streets, knows every trick in the book to protect me from what she calls predators. I don't want to be protected. Tired from dancing in the Romanian gypsy joint, I came back at 3 this morning, slipped off my shoes, but Lucky heard me anyway, made sure I was alone. 7. Taivas on sininen ja valkoinen. The sky is blue and white. Learning Finnish is impossible, but I can remember songs. Arrived in Helsinki when the Baltic was frozen, and in August a headline that makes everyone laugh proudly. 2 Africans fainted from the heat in Oulu. Fancy that. It's 1957. Camped with the bears in Karelia, learned to recite Little Red Riding Hood in Finnish, bought fresh fish in the market by the harbor, tried to cut a chicken in half with rose shears, getting a ton on my cousin's farm. The sauna is ready. My brother's wedding will be soon. Must fly home. My mother, 8. My mother at the door. The party is in full swing. There are a few boys, and my mother's at the door at 11 sharp, dragging me out. The party's at a friend's house. not far from home. But mother is she who will be obeyed. I must be home by 11. Mr. Anthony's boogie. I'm sweating, my hair limp, adrenaline pumping, and my mother's at the door. Komm jetzt sofort hier raus. Immediately come out of here. The face a cloud. Tomorrow I'll play Beethoven for her and Mozart. The piano needs tuning, and my shame hangs like a cloak. 9. My brother has built a crystal radio in a cigar box. He lets me listen to it when he feels generous of spirit. He's my big brother. I'm only small. He listens to the American Forces Network. I learned to say it. He puts his finger to his lips. Shh, don't. Or we get into heap great big trouble. Mother at the sewing machine, my budgie on her shoulder. They talk to each other. My brother says we're losing the war. My mother sings me to sleep after she tucks the eider down tight around me. Sleep, my child, sleep. So long as the bombers don't come. Dreams of fire. Tomorrow I'll eat. Sorry that was so long.
It sounded like a life history.
It was going back.
Backwards, yes.
And a long life. Sorry. I give up on the second one.
Number 3.
Okay. Rose mentioned COVID, and I have this poem from, 2 years ago, 3 years ago during COVID. It's called COVID-19. It was in the emergency room that first year of COVID when I was sent there from the urgent care struggling for air. In the flurry of attendants, the hiss of oxygen from the prongs of the nasal cannula, the surge of the alcohol bolus as they flashed my new IV, the pain of the needle in my artery pulling blood for gases, and my attention elsewhere, sorting through words for a new poem, chasing lines, threatening to slip behind the masked and gloved crowd, so busy with cuffs and wires, sensors and alarms, fitting me out in the web of medical surveillance. When the doctor asked me if it came down to it, would I want him to intubate, knowing that was a last-ditch Hail Mary pitch and no guarantee I'd ever breathe free again, I knew I was poet, hearing his question, but more concerned with finding some scrap of paper big enough to save my lines, the words still tumbling unabashed in the center of my attention, greedy for the stage, the microphone, the time to stitch them all together so they made a shining sense more important than this medical rescue that circled and circled me, yet never came close enough to push aside the words I need even more than air. Thank you.
Love that last line. That describes so many of us. My younger brother once said, no, one of my siblings said to my younger brother, you have to have the last word about everything. If somebody gave you a choice between dying or speaking, you'd speak before you died.
And you said, of course. Of course.
Of course we would. Number 4.
You're on
muted,
mute.
Sterling. You're still muted.
This has been a really crummy week for me. I guess it started with my home insurance being canceled, and then somebody from the tax saying, "Oh, somebody else filed under your tax number." But this was the poem I wrote yesterday, because of my home insurance being canceled, which I fixed. But the person I was talking to was my brother, who's a contractor, and they're rebuilding things right now. So, is it a good Oh, do we have the screen share on? Do we have the screen share on? I can't hear.
Now, yes.
Okay. Anyway, certainly not the best poem, but I'm getting it off my chest, right? It's called Masters of Anti-Indemnity. Thus spake the bold insurance carriers, hiding behind Mac Pro monitors, avoiding eye contact with flesh and blood clients whose home coverage they had just canceled with little pretense, just meeting quotas, a small matter of business through long-time patrons and contracts to the curb, allegiance confirmed to no one or no thing, yet cast nets around suckers who bought the bundling bottom line, trusting new owners unlikely to file a claim. Okay, I feel better.
Good. Poetry should make us all feel better. Number 5.
Given the fact that we're right between Easter and Passover, and also Jim's recent loss, I thought I would say something about Kaddish, which is the prayer for the dead in the Jewish religion. The poem is called 613, and that's because there are actually 613 commandments in the Torah. The epigraph. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. And that's from one of the meditations before the Kaddish. Today I say Kaddish for the living and the dead. I call the names of those in graves, those of ash and cinder, those still breathing but afraid. The list will fill the day and run long into the night, an ocean's tears that flow with memories to fill the reservoirs of life. May truth and wisdom be exalted and sanctified throughout the world, and say Amen. Tomorrow, when sun's light comes, I will strap phylacteries on my left arm and forehead, those proclaimed reminders of God's power and curse, each mitzvah they demand. May love come swiftly in these days, may friendship rule, and say Amen. My heart cries for those died of hate, perished in avaricious war. I spill a drop of Pesach wine for those who suffer the malicious tentacles of fate. May peace reign in high and holy places. Refrains of amity fill the air, and say Amen. Today I will say Kaddish and glorify unspoken names, those whom history and fame have left unsung, unknown, unnamed. I leave stones on their unmarked graves, that the road to heaven might be paved with my and their unspoken rage. May life be abundant on earth, peace in heaven, as with one voice say, Amen, Amen.
I like that.
Yeah, that's
Has that
very
been
good.
published? Has that been published?
Yes, it's actually in my latest chapbook, remember, of
That's
which you should
excellent.
have a copy, my friend.
I probably do. I have a couple of books from you sitting in my to be read next stack.
Oh, that stack we all have that keeps growing.
Well, yeah, then there's that and the one next to it that should have been read by now stack. But my to be read next stack has been winnowed down to 5. Sterling, my friend, your mouth is moving, but your mic is not picking it up. Y'all good? Okay. I am going to read the first poem that I did for this year's Poetry Month project that I've called April with Friends. This will be the 4th year that I've done this. And the fun for me has been the challenge of writing to a prompt, and writing quickly and a lot, because it means at least a poem a day. So the first request that I had was a humor poem. I said, okay, that's me. And this poem is called By Order of the Queen. By order of Her Majesty the Queen, the Joker must be never seen again. There's way too much tomfoolery and thefts of royal jewelry. She's out of sorts from crown down to her train. By order of His Majesty the King, the Joker must not ever, ever sing. His high notes kill sopranos. His low notes break pianos. The middle notes just aren't worth a thing. By order of their majesties at court, I'll keep this little ditty sweet and short. Today we celebrate the April Fool. Tomorrow we enroll him back in school and hope his teachers send a good report.
Thank you.
That takes us a full round back to number 1, who is also muted.
Okay. I'm going to read another one from my group that I write with. Yeah, I can't remember the prompt exactly, but this one is called Today. She could have been a wood nymph or a forest crone. Her eyes, little windows of blue, her hair white and wispy, tucked in her cap. Not a nymph or a crone, but a forest ranger, buttoned up in brown. Her head tilts skyward, ticking off Apapani with her little pad and pencil. I ask her how she knows how to count, how to tell one crimson honey creeper from another. She tells me she learned by counting humpbacks on Maui, and how she got really good at it. We talk about rapid ohia death, how the proliferation of one thing leads to the decimation of another in such an unbalanced world. But it's these things that I chose to take back home with me today. How my ears were brimming with birdsong, how my eyes filled with the dappled green of leaves and ferns in sun and shadow, the dark smell of dirt on the trail, and how we high-fived each other when she shouted, 49. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Are you sure you're giving me the time for another one?
I didn't say number 2, and I'm sure I'm not. I'm skipping you, Rose.
Okay.
We gave you 7 minutes for that previous round.
Oh my God. No, I'm fine with that. Absolutely.
We're going to jump over you to Mary, number 3.
Oh, okay. This is one from my book, and I hope I haven't read it to you before. I'm tending to get mixed up with this. And it's called The Mad Woman as Apostate, who refuses to confess, earning only the impatience of contempt, who is confused by all the music coming down at her, like a litany of everything she keeps on getting wrong, who goes on without excuses for her poor performance, her fumbles and missteps, misreading all the cues, standing when she should sit, speaking when she should sing, stumbling over every step of even the simplest celebrations, who keeps trying to get small enough to get lost in the corners, to be overlooked and innocent of catastrophe, still trying to make the cut the way she used to, easy and effortless, but failing, fading, falling further and further into the airless room with no furniture and a locked door and one small window she can't look through. She knows they can't see anything but the camera that has replaced her, wrestled her down into a hold she can't escape, telling her she must break the world back out from under the thick membrane that stops her breath, deadly and efficient as diphtheria, though smashing glass won't bring the colors back or lift the sentence of despair. Just confirm the fright she sees in faces trying to assure her she is not to blame for this outrageous failure, that if she'd only stop trying so hard, if only she'd be quiet and stop crying, if only she'd settle down to a smaller definition, wear her diagnosis like a proper badge of shame, things would be better and she'd feel so much lighter, free of rage and memory, unremarkable and tame. Thank you.
Okay, Mary, will you send that? Would you please send that to me with permission to share that with my mental health team?
Oh, yes. You know, Jim, that's one of the main reasons I wrote this book, because I went through this and I'm able to talk about it. I'm able to describe it. And one of the things I really wanted to do was for that to be there for people who are suffering in the same ways, but who aren't able to speak. You know, I wanted to be a voice, not just for myself. I would love you to share that.
Thank you, because I know both coworkers and patients who would benefit from those words.
Thank
Really well done.
you.
Thank you. Number 4, once more.
Let me get rid of this. Faces Beyond a Skid Road mural, dedicated to U.S. postal workers in Shelton, Washington. And that's the mural above the post office, where the bankers are. A cavalcade of longhorn oxen, yoked and tethered, haul freshly cut logs over rail ties soaked in coal tar creosote. The herdsman looks on, wrinkles his nose, and imagines downing 3 pints of ale come sundown. Meantime, he twirls a wooden cattle prod in one hand, pulling up denim trousers with leather-braided adjustable braces, sending telepathic missives to his fiancée while visualizing how postal workers might convey the same words preserved in ink, written on paper, to his Minneapolis paramour, who would keep it in a perfumed box, all billy do, tied in a lover's knot, treasures she'd unraveled if lonely.
Thank you.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was good.
That brings us back around to number 5.
Sometimes I write humor. After that last one, I thought I'd share something a little lighter. This is called Ars Poetica, and you spell it Ars, A-R-S, parenthesis, E, parenthesis. So you can experience a little pun in there, an extra little pun. I lost a poem today. She had run off when I awoke. Not a letter or a note left behind. Run off with an essayist determined to produce bon mots and aphorisms for a world of bel illiterati. They met on the internet. Be careful opening attachments. You never know how hidden messages, love songs and declarations, missed encounters, artistic intentions, wanderlust, or artistic pretensions. She could have been a sonnet, or at the very least, a song. I'd even let her choose a font. Instead, she's off chasing rainbows without so much as a shadow or a coda left to grace my studio floor. Such is the art of poetry that words can touch the heart, first when they are present, and then when they depart.
Well done. I'm going to switch moods to something more, not dark, but certainly not humorous. This was another of my requests for April with Friends. The prompt was regrets over things you can't undo or redo. The title of the poem is Regret is All That's Left. Get out the box of souvenirs, the letters and little gifts, a pair of earrings that were supposed to be the color of your eyes. You expected so much, wanted the cupcake with the most icing, cried when the cupcake dropped upside down, frosting gone. No way to put it back like new. No way to rewind and hold it more carefully, watching your step, avoiding the sidewalk's cracks. You might have been lucky enough to afford a replacement, but it wasn't exactly the same. And the unnamed thing that gnaws at your heart says, no do-overs. You can't erase the clumsy trip, unsay the harpooned insult, whisper your affection or praise in time for them to be heard, acknowledged. Regret is a harvest of loss, a crop of second guesses and doubts, a waltz of what ifs, danced in absolute silence, alone. Before you take the lid off that box of souvenirs, remember that memory is a bottomless hell when regret is all that's left.
That's quite an ending.
Powerful, Jim, powerful.
So that takes us, well, I was number 6. Shaun, would you like to read another? You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, okay, I'll read another. Okay. Another from my group. Okay, this is called Mary and I Cleaning Up. That's how we met. The sun seemed pleased this particular morning, tossing bright, flat light across the terrazzo, odd for an autumn day in Seattle. It threw shadows in a jumble of circles, squares, crisscross lines, the metal cafe tables and chairs mirroring an equal jumble. There was blood in a coppery smear across one table. Blood, not ketchup, because I know the difference. But ketchup too. And wadded napkins, straws and stir sticks, squeezed out lime wedges, stuffed in the necks of empty beer bottles, cigarettes snubbed out in planter boxes, in unfinished nachos. But ashtrays too. A lone shoe, red Solo cups. At least there were no needles. The two of us, once young, once eager to sling pitchers and shots at all the grungers who haunted the night streets of Pioneer Square, now world-weary lunch waitresses, bussing and sweeping and wiping and setting things in order for the tourists and the businessmen and us. Thanks.
That was an amazing picture you painted.
Thank you.
I like that.
My days as a waitress.
Oh, we'll talk later about my days as a waiter.
Oh, boy.
With that, we're going to slide again to Mary.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Okay, I'll do this one. This is also from the book. That last time in the hospital, They took my nail file and pocket knife and set someone there on constant watch because in case I found the sudden energy to act. But I'd lost so much. The flow of tears like blood from an untended wound diminished me hour by hour until I had nothing to take me from one night to the next. I was too far away for words to reach. That morning when the chaplain came, instead of prayer, she took her violin and played for us. 5 people in a small room, all broken, stopped, defeated, dumb with sorrow, and music fell on us like sweet rain, a blessed absolution outside the rules of pain. Thank you.
Wow. I really appreciate the fact that you've been able to put that into words.
It's something she played Vivaldi Spring, and it was a small room, and the sound of that violin in that small room, it was such a blessing. It was wonderful.
That's cool.
I love the way you say, and music fell on us.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
It is.
Thank you.
As one of my upcoming April with Friends poems, the title of that poem is Vivaldi versus California.
Oh.
And it
Yeah.
directly references his Four Seasons suite. It will be fun to share that with you.
Yeah. I'll look forward to that.
Number 4.
Okay, here's a piece. I think I might have shared it with you in another form where I wrote it as quatrains, didn't like it, and so I completely redid it so that it was a Fibonacci poem. And when it's called,
Oh.
it was, what's that? It's called Camilla's Chemo. Chemotherapy ravaged Camilla while treatment eradicated her quick growth cancer cells. Toxic drugs mixed and attacked her hair roots. She dropped strands of crimson locks to the ground like flower petals falling from her namesake's blossoms. Threw tarot cards, assumed gypsy garb, wore scarves, though follicles curled underneath her paisley cloth. Diviner's persona intact, she accepted all misfortune, reborn as a healer and storyteller. Camellia opened a candle shop, dancing, singing with patrons. Pashmina shawl wrapped, gold earring hoops swayed.
Sterling, what do you mean by a Fibonacci poem? Is that the
A Fibonacci poem is based on the Fibonacci sequence, where you go, we could do it any number of, but 2 plus 2, in the third line, the syllable is 2, and then you keep adding the former 2 lines so that the fourth line is 3 syllables, and so on and so forth. And then you have 2 and 3 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8, 8 and 5 is 13. You can't go much further or you're going to write off the page, quite frankly.
okay?
And then you can go back in the other direction.
Okay, it's a mathematical
Yeah, it's a
progression.
mathematical thing. Here, what I did is I stopped. I just went backwards. Okay, from 1 and 1 is 2.
Okay.
1 and 2 or 2. Excuse me. My lips are chapped, but it's a mathematical sequence. It's fun to do sometimes. And if you feel like a particular poem is getting wordy, it really forces you to condense.
Okay.
And it's it's a very different than a metrical poem of counting syllables in feet, but it does very much count the number of words in the line in an exponential way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 7. It gets fast, as Sterling mentioned. By the time you get to 13 words, it's time to go backpedaling.
Mhm.
Okay.
But it is a very disciplined way to think about what words you're using.
I kind of fell in love with it because after being an English professor for 40 years and doing all the traditional forms to my students, teaching that, it's like, well, I was retired before I learned about the Fibonacci format. And so it was something new, something fun. And so I always recommend trying something like that. Same thing with quadrillars. I never wrote them till I retired.
I thought they were newly invented.
They
They
are.
probably are. I'm probably trying to avoid that factor in my age.
They have been invented only for 2 or 3 years now.
Lori Howe and Chris Cadra from Wyoming.
Yeah, they did it around the time of the COVID crisis. I think it was 2019.
Anyway, it's developed into quite a following of people writing in that format.
They're fun to do. They're actually, I love them. I have done a few, and I love the form.
So let's finish up with number 6 and a little humor before
You skipping me?
Who are you?
Ken.
I'm just kidding. I would not want to skip you, Ken. Go.
Okay, thank you. This one's called Polyphemus, who, if you remember your Odyssey, is the Cyclops. It was written August 31st, 2021, on the occasion of the U.S. exit from Afghanistan. Poor one-eyed Polyphemus, how did you deserve the blind poet's calumniation? You with no wife, son, or even loyal dog, and that selfish wanderer stealing into your unlocked cave without permission. The wage of hubris should be tragedy, not poetry. Let Odysseus pluck his own eyes out. Instead, that wayward Ithacan took yours, then rushed to raise his sails with mockery. Blind Cyclops, nobody mourns for you or sings your song. Should not the poet's lyre your cries to distant shores? Poseidon, sea god, cause winds to roar and earth to shake and doom the trickster's sail go astray. Palamedes, how many dead have you for Agamemnon tilled? Deceit has filled the Elysian fields and wrapped with death Trojans. Achaeans, courage, beauty, love, yet left poor Polyphemus scorned and by nobody wronged. Would that Menelaus had never adored, that Paris's eyes been plucked at birth before desire could set those 1,000 ships and vengeance loose at Aulis, that young Iphigenia's tears had stayed her father's hand, that you, solitary teller of tales, had never gazed on Odysseus or rolled your stone door closed. Forget the graves and vengeance of men and gods. Sing for poor Polyphemus, this loneliest of songs.
Well done. I will have to email you my poem of Polyphemus. Takes it in a very different direction.
Love to see it.
Now that we've gone from 4 to 5, we'll go on to 6 and not pretend it's a Fibonacci. And I'm going to end with something humorous because one of the requests I had was just hilarious. And to quote, this was the request: a poem about being able to cloak yourself so that you can traipse through a city with nary a stitch on and nobody can tell. Okay, you can just imagine my poet and humor brain had some fun with that. So here's the poem called Nary a Stitch. Historically speaking, not many characters have gained notoriety by doffing their duds. There was that famous dolt of an emperor, duped into thinking he was all decked out in royal splendor, when the truth was he was simply hanging out in public. Lady Godiva, proving a point to her husband that taxes can be too much for the poor, rode naked through the streets, but the good townfolk gave her some dignity by turning their backs and closing all shutters. So I wonder who documented the daring deed. Of course, plenty of artists' models disrobed, though they weren't public until the paint had dried. So what, pray tell, would possess a woman to wish for a cloak of invisibility or some such that would let her roam the streets of the city, wobbly bits untethered, bare butt and bare backed, totally incognita, peeping and prying and spying, giddy at the thought of getting caught in naught, nary a stitch from crown to sole, bold as a bear. Tell me, what exactly is she hoping for, unless, oh, never you mind, Dr. Freud. Let the lady run with her fantasy, and pray the baker isn't tossing out flour as she glides by.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was, I did have fun with that. So I'm going to stop the recording at this point. We have some time left we can visit.